What happens when a CEO of a company repeatedly sexually harasses their employees? Well, one company finds out and has to pay the price. Is this in Hollywood? No, it's in Wyoming. Let's get into it. LinkedIn success. Hi, my name is T. Welcome to my channel if you're new here, and welcome back if you are returning. I appreciate you hanging down here in the best basement where we talk about employment wrongdoings and employee scandal. Hey, basement besties, did you know that June is Men's Mental Health Awareness Month? And taking care of your mental health is just as important as taking care of your body. A lot of times, men are told to be quiet, suck it up, and not talk to anyone about their problems. And that couldn't be further from the truth and more dangerous, which is why I'm so grateful to partner with Talkspace to offer you, my basement besties, $80 off on your first session of therapy. And they even take insurance. So click the link down below and use my code to get $80 off. Your mental health is important, and we want to see you around for many more years to come. So, again, just click on the link below, get $80 off your first session of therapy with Talkspace. And if you enjoy any of these stories, please be sure to like, subscribe, share with your friends. And as always, talk to me down in the comments so that I know what's on your mind. And so, the reason why I tell you these stories is not to just shock you, right? It's not for shocking, it's not for any of that. It's so that if something happens to you, you can start to recognize patterns and you recognize that we have things in place as workers to be able to defend ourselves. And one of those things is the EEOC. So here we go. So the company in question is a company in Wyoming, and it's a family owned business. So they're privately owned, and it's called Waller Trucking Company of Big Piney, Wyoming. And so they have been sued by the EEOC, and they're forced to pay $124,000 to settle a sexual harassment suit. Now, to me, $124,000 isn't enough, but I think that that money goes to the EEOC. I'm hoping that the victim is able to also sue civilly and receive compensation as well. Now, I'm just reading things according to the lawsuit, according to Yahoo News and some other sources that I will put on the screen. And this is why we talk about this kind of thing, because a lot of times, I remember about 4 years ago, there was some uproar that was saying that, like, oh, sexual harassment training is stupid. Sexual harassment training is woke. It's not woke. It happens every day. And if you have a small business, if you have a company, this is why you want to make sure that you have HR in place. This is why you want to make sure that you have a good HR team that makes sure you don't do stupid things like what this owner did. So let's get into reading some of what happened. So apparently, and I'll go ahead and put it on the screen, and I'm reading right now, but basically, according to the EEOC complaint, which was filed last year, September 30th, 2024, Waller's Trucking Company hired Lisbeth Porter as a truck driver in February 2017, and she was directly supervised by Norman Waller. So Norman Waller is the owner of the trucking company. And he began to sexually harass her soon after she started her employment. He subjected her, now imagine this went on for years, to near daily inappropriate, unwelcomed, and offensive sexual comments and conduct. Daily inappropriate, unwelcome, and offensive sexual comments and conduct. Court filings stated that Waller made sexual propositions towards Porter, including saying he would cut a hole in the wall if they did not have adjoining rooms when working as team drivers, and asked her for a good morning kiss. Porter claimed that she feared for her safety and took some of Waller's comments as sexual threats. According to the lawsuit, Waller also publicly referred to Porter as a lot lizard, which is a derogatory term for an ex worker that is often found at truck stops. According to the lawsuit, some of the statements that Waller made were as follows. Quote, "Too bad you're not wearing a skirt with no undergarments. Make sure you wear a tank top so your boobies show. You need to wear booby shirts so I can get more business." So just harassing her, saying horrible things to her, affecting her self esteem, affecting her ability to get work done. Obviously, you're not wanting to be in close proximity to this man because at some point it's like, okay, he's saying all these very vulgar things. Is it going to go further than just talking? Right. So obviously, I can understand where she would be afraid. And on more than one occasion, okay, so people did speak up. It says Waller's behavior prompted a male employee to speak up for Porter, stating he couldn't speak to her in a sexually harassing manner. However, Waller replied, "I'm 72 years old. I can say whatever the hell." Well, apparently you can't, sir. And he is now 77 years old and having to pay out this lawsuit. And I'm guessing if it's not made public yet, hopefully she takes this to civil court and sues civilly. See, these are the things that we have to do as workers to make sure that companies know that they can't act like this with their employees. Anyway, the owner of this trucking company was a complete menace, allegedly, and according to the sources that I'm reading. So, and according to the lawsuit, I mean, he had to pay in person and over the company's CB radio, which is wild. So, not only did he do this privately to her, but he did this in front of other employees, which means that there were other witnesses that likely corroborated the story and said, "Yeah, I remember him saying this," because this was able to go on, and it shows to me. And again, this is all just my best guesses. I didn't work there, so I don't know. But my best guess would be if he was able to do this on the intercom, if he was able to do this on the company's CB radio, where the other truckers could hear, if he was able to say these things in front of other employees, he had built an incredibly abusive and toxic work environment. Especially the fact that he felt that comfortable to do these things in front of people shows he's been doing it for a long time. It probably was hell to work there. Private companies that think you're safe from having to follow the rules because you're the owner, you're not on the NASDAQ, and you think like, hey, I don't need to have an HR team, or I need to just have a payroll team. I don't care about HR because who's going to sue me? This is case in point. You are not above the law. So you can't even talk to somebody anymore. And that's often the excuse that's given when people talk about sexual harassment laws, when they talk about people suing. Um, every time someone sues for sexual harassment, it's always a shakedown, it's always a money grab, right? But these are real situations and cases. And people like to bring up outliers of where people lie and where people say things that happened that didn't. I think people need to be careful because, again, these are slippery slope arguments. Because at the end of the day, you want these protections as a worker. You want to be, and why do we have these protections? The bottom line is when you go into work, when people are like, you can't even compliment a woman anymore. At the end of the day, when you go into work, are you going there for a paycheck or are you going there for compliments? You're going there for a paycheck. So, yeah, if your compliment is, wow, I like your boobs in that shirt. If your compliment is, your skirt should be shorter and you shouldn't have on panties, you should like learn how to give compliments, first of all. Like that's freaking ridiculous. But people oftentimes act like a lot of these sexual harassment claims are innocent and that they're just small things like, gee, Jody, your hair looks really nice today. Now, again, maybe some people don't even want that, right? And so at the end of the day, I have to feel offended because you can't do something to someone, because you can't step over a boundary that they have, is weird to me. It's so strange when I hear people put up these arguments. Now, let's watch this video of Chelsea Handler. She is a famous comedian, and she's talking about when somebody accused her of sexual harassment. And it's really interesting to me, her response. I feel like she took responsibility for learning how to do better and be better and not harass people. And she really made a strong statement. So let's watch this and then let's come back and talk about it.
Like a beatnik night and spoken word, and people got up and rapped or read prose. And this woman, this black woman, sang this great song, and I was sitting behind her. And when she got up, I gave her a hug to say great job and kind of smacked her on the butt. That's my sign of affection. Like, that's how I say, hey, sister, we're friends, we're sisters, we're girls. It's not a sexual affront because I'm straight,
right?
Or so I thought. And and I got a call the next day, and they said, okay, this girl was very upset. The woman you touched on the ass, and I didn't even remember it. And immediately I became defensive. I was like, oh no. I'm like, I'm not hitting on her. And they're like, that's not the issue. So I got on the phone with her, and she, and I said, please tell me what I did wrong. And she said, listen, for years and years and years, black women have been defined by their hair and their asses. You have no right to touch my body. Mm-hmm. And once I heard about how it was received rather than my intention, that was a big wake-up call.
Right.
It's not about how you mean it. It's about what that person takes it as. So that was the first lesson out of the gate. And then I asked them, am I allowed to do that to white people, touch them? Is it just a black thing? And they're like, stop touching people altogether. Like, don't do that. And it's very hard for
Okay, so one of the things that stands out to me about the Chelsea Handler interview here is that she says it's not about how you mean it, it's about how that person takes it. So she learned quickly, like, hey, my intent was this, but the person took it as this. And I think that that's the key when it comes to consent and it comes to harassment in the workplace. And that's why sometimes I feel like the arguments that people will pose on the internet, at least, can be disingenuous, right? Because a lot of times you hear these arguments of like, well, I just want to say hello, so you can't. I actually did see somebody say, well, you can't just touch somebody at work. No, you can't. Like, you can't just touch somebody at work. um and I think oftentimes think that, like, you do something once and maybe you say, good morning, Jody, your hair looks nice. And then Jody goes directly to HR and reports you for sexual harassment, and then you immediately get fired. That's not oftentimes how that works. And if you have a good HR team, that's also something that probably it wouldn't happen like that, right? There would be an investigation, and part of that investigation is checking to see if this has happened with other people, right? Have you made other people feel uncomfortable? So there's a whole process that takes place before you are considered somebody that is sexually harassing people. And what often happens is, just like this situation with the trucking company, it happens continuously over time, right? Because a lot of times when people harass, it doesn't just happen once. And we're going to actually look at this Tyler Perry case coming up. Like, this is another video that I'm going to make, but there's a pattern of abuse. And in this particular case, it seems like this person went a little bit outside of that pattern, in that they hired a person and they just went straight forward with the abuse. But it doesn't always happen that way, right? So it's not to say that if pat somebody on the back, or if you say good morning to a person, that you will immediately be fired. This is the argument that a lot of people like to put forth, and that's not necessarily true. Usually it's progressive. It's something that happens over time. Maybe that person told you to stop, or maybe that person told you they didn't like it. And then they finally get to a point where they go to HR, and then HR performs an investigation, which also includes interviewing other employees, is usually how investigations go to determine whether or not there is something that puts the company at risk, and the employee at a particular risk. And I'm talking about the employee who has accused, like, is there a threat there? Is there a danger? So again, I find some of these other arguments disingenuous when they're like, oh, you can't even talk to somebody. You can fully talk to somebody. And I think most of us as adults in the workforce understand the difference between being nice and crossing a line or being inappropriate. So in this particular case, going back to the case, court filing stated that when Porter reported the incidents to Waller's wife, so I'm guessing they didn't have HR there because she went directly to the owner's wife, which makes sense. Like the next person in charge, Paulette Walker, who served as the treasurer, secretary, and human resources representative. So his wife was the HR person. Porter went to the wife. She simply laughed. Porter quit her job in September 2019, according to court documents, when she asked for the day off to attend her teenage daughter's graduation from a trade school. In response, Norman Waller messaged Porter asking her how much he should include as a gift in a card to her daughter, adding that he would send her daughter a lace nightgown as a gift, but would probably get the P slapped out of me, the suit said. So this man was just off the charts with the harassment. He's harassing the employee. Now he's saying disgusting things about the daughter. So the EEOC complaint states that Porter replied to Waller's text message with a message stating, I will endure your unsolicited sexual remarks and advances no longer. I quit. That to me says that she likely had a lawyer at the time of putting in her notice. And sometimes when you are in the middle of being sexually harassed, my advice would be to get a lawyer at that time, because a lawyer will give you advice about what to do while you are in the situation. And that text message says, it's very clear, unsolicited sexual remarks, so that when the lawsuit takes place, you said, hey, none of this is solicited. I did not cooperate with this. I did not ask for this. I was not playing along with this. And so I am curious if she did get a lawyer during that time. In addition to all of this, a second victim actually came forward. So, another female employee who was not named in court filings also accused Norman Waller of sexual harassment. And the suit claimed that he said the same thing to her, to wear more booby shirts so that they could get more business. After the female employee spoke with Waller in private and on another occasion publicly about the alleged sexual harassment, she claimed that Waller then scheduled her for half as many shifts as other workers at Waller's Trucking. She quit her job in October 2019. So that's a whole nother thing too, is that now he's retaliating against her because she's saying, hey, I don't like this. And so he is now saying, okay, great. So you're just going to have less hours. All of that is illegal. And so now what is the penalty that his company has to pay in addition to the $124,000 to settle the sexual harassment suit with the EEOC? Here are some of the things that the company is now required to do. Okay, so the penalty, in addition to providing 124,000 in monetary relief, um, they are also required to issue letters of apology to the victims. They need to revise and distribute an anti-harassment and anti-retaliation policy. They also have to post a notice in the workplace informing employees of the settlement and provide specialized training to supervisors and employees. So, this is what the EEOC is requiring of them. They also agreed to provide the EEOC with periodic reports regarding any future complaints of sexual harassment or retaliation, including a description of each employee's allegations and the company's response. So the EEOC is on them, and it is going to take a lot for the EEOC to back off. So now the company is on notice. They're going to have to provide these periodic reports. And this stuff gets expensive over time. It's a family owned business. They could end up going out of business. Um, and the district director of the EEOC Phoenix district office added, the unfortunate reality is that sexual harassment and discrimination continue to occur all too frequently in the workplace, including workplaces in Wyoming. All employees have the right to work in an environment free from sexual harassment so they can focus on their jobs and providing for their families. Now, that is a fact. And that is exactly why we have these laws in place. So, I would love for you all to sound off in the comments. Let me know what you think. Do you think that $124,000 is enough? I'm trying to determine if that was paid to the EEOs, like if that was who that was paid to, because I don't feel like that's nearly enough for everything that she went through and him also threatening to sexually harass her daughter. Um, I feel like that feels like $1 million case or multi-million-dollar case. But I'd love to know what you think in the comments. As always, leave your comments for me down in the bottom. I read every single one. Or, maybe you think that, hey, some of these sexual harassment lawsuits are taking it too far. People are just trying to shake down companies and get rich by any means necessary. Either way, I would love to have a discussion about it. And I love when you join me down here in the basement. So thank you. I hope your week is off to a good start, and I'll see you in the next story. Peace.